So, hello everyone. How are you today?
Hello, everyone. How are you today? Hello, everyone. How are you today? Hello,
So, we were getting some feedback on my other channel. How are you guys? Hello. Come on in. I know that it is lunchtime today, and so I am super excited to go ahead and get started. Today's live is actually going to be a bit of a longer live on today. So you guys just come in and out as you see fit. I actually have my water here today, and I have my coffee because I wanted to try something new for the channel. And I wanted to see how it works for us doing like a weekly lunch where we chat and get together and just spend some girl time. I know that if you can see, I'm in my house today. I am working from home and I still have up my Christmas decorations. So as you come in, tell me if you are a bit like me and you think that the Christmas season is just too short, right? I feel like we only get a month. So I always leave my Christmas decorations up until after the MLK holiday. That's just a personal preference of mine. And so you guys see some parts of my Christmas decorations, they'll come down this weekend more than likely. So it's time to put that holiday season to rest, and we are coming back and getting started with the new year and just everything that we have going on. I have had a very robust new year. You guys, honey, I've traveled, all sorts of things. And so I've had a very robust new year, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to just come in. Hello, hey babe, how are you? Feminine readings. We have an exciting topic about today. So let me tell you, today is going to be like girl talk meets like lunchtime or brunch time, right? And so I want you guys to chime in as you need to, because I am going to be sharing my story about how I became the ultimate level up, the ultimate high level woman, right? And of course, that was like a co-creation, and it's definitely something that's self-declared. But I'm going to tell you what brought about the inspiration for today's topic. So I was in Houston earlier this week with some of my girlfriends, my business friends, and then also this is a special group because not only are some of these ladies just major boss babes that I met through Mina or Fun, but they are also women who are extremely feminine, right? And that is a really hard combination to find here in the US. Really hard combination to find. And so when I came across this community, I was just like, oh my gosh, these are my girls. Like, these are my girls. Well, we had all this fun stuff planned, and the night before we all left from Houston, we went and ate out at one of my favorite restaurants in Houston, Eddie V's. And we were sitting at the dinner table, and the girls had heard a bit of my story. And all of a sudden, from kind of just hearing the story, I started to get a lot of questions about how in the world did you transition from being like this boss babe, lawyer energy into being a fully provided for wife. And while the question came like that, it kind of puzzled me a little bit because that wasn't how I saw my story, right? Those were the questions that were coming. But I honestly was a provided for girlfriend and wife before I became a boss babe, right? But a lot of the questions centered around the whole being a fully provided for wife. I think on the internet they call it several. If you guys know any of the terms, then put them in the chat for me of what people are calling, women who are fully provided for right now. I can't remember a word that I saw on one channel, but I know I've heard women call it like the Proverbs 31 woman, where you can blend both your boss babe energy. It blends very seamlessly with your like housewife energy, or being, very dutiful to your husband. That's what they call it in the religious world. Is it hypergamy? I think that's the word that I had. Any of you, I don't know if you have any, but hypergamy is the word that I also thought about. But the women who deal in hypergamy often are just the fully provided for wives, right? They have not gone on, and maybe they don't want to also. Like, I don't want it to assume that every woman wants this, but they have not gone on to develop out that boss girl energy that is so strong here in America. So either way, that is what brought up the inspiration from the topic. And like, the ladies were, giving me a lot of questions, and I wanted to I'll go through some of those questions that they asked and answer them for you. Oh, trophy wife, yes. Hypergamy, yes, yes. Feminine readings, thank you, love. So at the end of the day, what is my story, right? Let's start there. How in the world did you become this ultimate level up woman where you got this fully provided for lifestyle and sis is a boss babe? So let's start with the, I guess, fully provided for wife, or if you guys have a desire, which story you want to hear first, just put it in the chat and I'll let you know. So the fully provided for wife came first, right? So growing up, you guys have met my mom on my channel. Her name is Step J. Step J, my mother, shared with all of us some of the tips that she gave me a whole bunch of it as her daughter growing up, but she shared some of the main tips that I heard as a young girl growing up about how to date men, right? And my mom was a single parent of 4 children. She had all of her children before the age of 25, right? And so that experience, as you can imagine, was very, very hard on my mother, just financially, mentally, and emotionally. You're one person having to care for 4 innocent children and lives, right? And you guys know I just had my daughter. She's 4 months old, and I just can't imagine what my mom went through, right? But that was her story. So as her oldest child, she was very, very like no nonsense with me. My mom gave it to me straight. She gave it to me plain. And she was like, hey, don't get married before you get married. Don't get married before you get married. And so as a young girl, I'm growing up hearing all of these sayings from my mom. One of the other things she would say is, hey, the man that is serious with you, the man that is serious about you will always keep his word. You'll never have to wonder. His word will always match his actions. And so my mom, I'm coming of age. I have my friends over here. I have my mom over here. I have my grandmother. I have my aunts. I grew up being raised primarily by women. It was my grandmother, my aunt, and my mom were the 3 primary caregivers for me. So I'm growing up and I'm hearing all of these situations that are going on with my friends, right? As we are dating. And when I say dating, most of my friends started dating around officially 16, but of course, puberty hit and you start getting your crushes and you start liking guys around 12, 13, the middle school right? So as I am coming of age with my friends, I'm listening to this different advice that my mom is giving me because she was a teenage parent. And I'm seeing my friends do the exact opposite of my mom, what she said to do. My mom said, when you're alone, if you find yourself alone with a guy that you're dating, right, you have certain boundaries. Maybe you've decided if you like this guy enough, he may be able to kiss you, but there will be no touching or anything like that. I'm on YouTube, so I have to like find some better words, but you can't place yourself in certain areas of my body, right? My body is unavailable if you and I are just dating, aka don't get married before you get married. And so all of these different things, and I'm watching some of the ladies, if they're not my close friends, but like friends of friends and the associates in high school, and I'm watching these girls just like do the complete opposite, and they're coming to school every day, they're crying, they're fighting, they're doing all this other stuff. So I decided I'm gonna listen to my mom and I'm gonna try to date the way that she does. Well, what my mom also shared with me, which she didn't call it this, but this was in essence what it was the concept of rotational dating, right? So my mom was very big on, you should date multiple men throughout your courting process. Don't get married before you get married. So meaning, if you have, the way it looked for me was that I feel like I had probably only 3 guys that I dated before I met my husband, right? So my husband, we met for the first time when I was 15 going on 16 at a program at our colleges for high school students, but we didn't start dating until I got to college in like November of 2005 was when we went on our first date. But we met there, But as I was entertaining guys and going through that stage, there was this like, okay, I'm talking to multiple guys, and then this one guy stands out that I really like in a season, right? And so he becomes my boyfriend. And then something happens that doesn't work out. I go back in the dating scene. At that point, I'm dating multiple guys, right? And remember, I don't get married before I get married. So then they don't have access to my body in those ways. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Amen. So, and that's of course, unless you want to. So you're coming of age, of course. Hey, my body's off limits, but I'm getting to know you. We're enjoying each other. We're going on dates like bowling or going out to eat, having a ton of fun, right? But no heartbreak, which is what I think my mom was so genius in doing when she was giving me this stuff. If this is resonating with you guys, let me know. I don't want to be babbling. We can move on to the rest of the story. Just say, go ahead, move forward, Lindasha. In my boss babe life, I'm a lawyer, so I have a lot of words. So I literally don't mind if you guys like say, hold on. This is what we really want to know. So put your questions in the chat to keep me directed. So fast forward, there were three guys that I think officially became like my front runners at different times. My husband being the third guy, right? Each of the guys that I considered to be my front runner, not the guys that I was just entertaining or dating, every last one of them told me that I was going to be their wife. Now, mind you, I'm a teenager. The first guy I started dating when I was 15, and then my husband officially 18. So I'm 15 years old, and here are these guys saying, "Oh, you're going to be my wife." And so the first guy says it, and I'm like, okay, I'm not even thinking about that, right? In my mind, I want to go be a lawyer. I'm going to school. Love, don't get married before you get married. Yes, don't get married before you get married. Tell your daughters, your nieces, and everything else, especially for this generation. Don't get married before you get married. So here I am. These guys are literally like telling me my front runners are all telling me I'm gonna be their wives, right? And so the first guy says it, and I'm like, okay, but you want to stay in my hometown. You love your life. I had global views even as a kid. I knew I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to live in a bigger city and all of that. I come from a small town. So when I broke it off with him, because I was just like, we're not going in the same place. The second guy was like, hey, you're going to be my wife. Like, I want to marry you. He says, and one day we're sitting on a date. I'm getting ready to go in the house. You know, he's like really serious and is like, hey, one day you're going to be my wife. This guy really connected to having a lot of fun, but I know I'm about to go off to college. I hear him, but at the same time, he's super handsome. All the girls in town want him. And I'm like, when I go off to college, you're not going to be, serious. That was my initial thought. Despite how you feel now, you're not going to be serious, but okay, I'm going to be your wife. By the time I got to my husband, who was the third guy that said, the way he said it, we were leaving a date again because I'm dating. Please keep going, ha ha ha. It makes so much sense. I love don't get married before you get married in all aspects. This applies. New mantra. Yay! Yes, Lizette. Yes, new mantra. Step J. I'm gonna have to link the video we did a few years ago so you guys can hear it from the horse's mouth. But yes, absolutely. New mantras. So when I get to my husband, right? By the time we get to my husband, he is the third. Now, he doesn't know this, okay? This is all what I know as a girl, right? What I've experienced in the dating world. So he looks at me after one of our dates. We had gone to the movies, and he was like, I think it was the movies. Don't hold it to me, but you're young, so you're doing cheaper dates. So he looks at me and he's like, hey, the next girl that I asked to be my girlfriend is going to be my wife. Now, as I told you, I've heard this twice from two of my exes. So I'm like, oh, okay. I don't say anything. I don't do that whole, that's just what men say. Y'all don't mean it. Da 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 da. No, 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 no. I don't do any of that. I just say, oh, okay. And I get out and I go back to my dorm room, right? Because I was in college at this point. Fast forward to a few days later, I think we had left the mall. I think we went shopping at the mall or something. And he was like, hey, I want you to be my girlfriend. Okay. And I was like kind of stuck a little bit because I was like, whoa, I remember what you said. And if I say yes to this, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, am I saying yes to being his wife? And then I was like, wait, is this a ploy for us to go further in the bedroom? I had all these questions, but nevertheless, he was my front runner at the time. I was dating 7 guys at the time, right? Remember, dating for me did not, because of what my mom taught me, it did not equate to giving my body to men, right? I've never had any experience where I was forced or any of that kind of stuff into giving my body to a man when I didn't want to, right? So it just didn't equate that. Men respected me. I've never had any of those types of issues. So I feel like my coming of age was a very pure experience. And so at the end of the day, I know that I'm thinking like, is this a ploy? Is he serious? But by this time, my husband, whose name is Curtis, has kept his word our entire courtship, right? And so he made this statement a few months into us dating. So let's reverse and talk about how this kind of connects to being a fully provided for wife. Let me take a minute and take a sip of water. You guys, if you have a question or anything, just let me know. Also, if you're watching the replay, put your questions in. I typically will go back through and try to answer questions or either make another video about it if I think it's a good topic. So at the end of the day, let's fast forward. Go back to my first date with I don't know he's my husband yet. He's one of the guys in my dating rotation. Okay. We go out to dinner. We have a great time. The dinner was super cheap. It was somewhere like Burger King because we're in college, right? So if you are a younger girl listening to this, maybe 18, 19, 20, that is an appropriate date for y'all's age. If you are my age now, a grown woman, 30 plus, you're not going to probably be accepting dates to a fast food restaurant. So keep it in mind as you are listening and making your notes and trying to recharge your course to manifest being a fully provided for wife and also a boss babe, if that's what you want, or either or. You know, some of you may be wanting to be a boss babe, forget the fully provided for wife, or vice versa. So at the end of the day, that was our first date. About a month into dating, this is before my future husband, I'm just dating him now. He is becoming my front runner though in my rotational dating. This is before he makes his statement about the next girl who's going to be my girlfriend is going to be my wife. We're dating, and my husband literally is a super smart guy. He's a physician, right? He was valedictorian of his high school, and also got a full ride to college. I went to Spelman, an all-girls school. He went to Morehouse, an all-boys school in Atlanta. And so fast forward to a month into dating, Curtis is doing research at one of the labs, and it pays him a few $100s a week, right? Probably like $500 if I remember correctly. It was about 500 bucks. And my husband, literally 1 month into dating, comes on our date on that Friday night and is like, "Hey, here's my check. Put it in your bank account." Now, I am a small town girl from South Carolina. You guys tell me how you would have felt if a man did that to you. Like if you're dating a guy and you're just having fun, you're kind of in college, I'm in between boyfriends, and one of the guys you're dating says, "Hey, here's my whole check, put it in your account." I was like, at first I was like, "No, I'm good." I didn't, I thought it was like maybe him trying to pay for me in some sort of way. Y'all let me know if y'all would have thought like that. But my mom was like, I don't know about this. I don't, it was given transaction. And I was like, you can pay for my dates and that kind of stuff. But I was reluctant to take his money. And he was adamant. He was like, "No, no, no. In case you need anything, in case something's going on and you're not able to call me, et cetera, you're not able to get in touch with me, I want you to have this. I want you to have this money, right?" And lo and behold, I'm literally doing this, and my husband's calling me. But I'm gonna text him and tell him I call him back that I'm recording, and he may be able to see this on YouTube because he usually watches. But anyway, so I got thrown off. Look, he sometimes older videos, he'll pop in and stuff. So either way, he does that and he says, "Here, go ahead, whatever you need. You may need something, put it in your account." And I was just like, "Oh, okay." So I took the check and I put it in my account and I let it stay. I didn't spend any of the money, right? So the next week he does the same thing. We are not officially girlfriend and boyfriend. So I am completely confused. Nice move. Thank you. I am completely confused at this point, right? I am completely confused at why this man brought me another check, right? He's like, hey, here's the check again. He was like, put it in your account. He was like, the only thing that I need is I need to make my car payment. So it had to be about 6 weeks after we started dating because that was like January when we got back after Christmas break. So he's like, I just need to make my car payment. It was like $200. He's like, that's all I need from this check. The rest of it, put it in your account. So I do it again. Don't spend it. So every week, this is becoming what he does, right? And then it leads up to him saying after one of our dates, hey, the next girl that I asked to be my girlfriend is going to be my wife. Now, mind you, he's giving me his money before he even asked me to be his girlfriend. He is showcasing that he's a provider. As I look back on it now, that is what the story says to me. Like, oh, I didn't know it at 18, of course, because I had no language for what I was experiencing at the time. I feel like currently our current dating culture has almost forced us to name this because the dating culture is so out of whack right now. It's so weird, right? It's just weird. It's too many issues, but the dating culture is so weird. I feel like God really put us in a position where we had to put words to how courting was before the rise of social media, the rise of online dating, and the rise of this predator energy that men and women have gotten into that's not very healthy for sustaining a long-term loving relationship. So either way, he shows that he start no more worrying about how you're going to ask for money. Yes, yes. So as he does all of that, and so as the account is getting stacked up with those checks, we're dating or whatever else, and it got to the point where after he asked me to be his girlfriend, I was like, "Oh, you want me to be your wife for real? Like you really want me to have this money?" And so he was like, just take what you need. You don't have to ask me if you need to get something out of the account. Like, I'm giving this to you. Fast forward, of course, about a year later, he proposes to me. I'm 19 on spring break. And then a year after that, the summer before my senior year in college, we actually get married. So he proves back to what my mom said before the rotational dating that he is who he says he is, right? So that is the whole beginning of the fully provided for wife. At the time when we got together, and you guys kind of again let me know how your dating has gone or whether you found this to be something that girls know. Is this knowledge that something that girls know, or is it something that we're really like struggling to remember in our female awareness and consciousness the more we date according to the current matrix? You just let me know. But at the end of the day, when we started, one of the first things that I want to say about what it looks like with being the ultimate level up woman, especially on the fully provided for side, is that a man will literally reveal to you that he is a provider before he asks for his your hand in marriage. One of the things that my husband said about that made him kind of hesitant on his end, even though he looked at me, he was like, I already knew you were a wife. And as we've talked years, like we have a pretty open relationship as it relates to our communication, not the other stuff, Lord. We have open communication. So he's very aware of my dating history. I'm very aware of his. And he was like, I'm not confused that two other guys said you were their wife. He said, because you are a wife. He's like, you present like a wife. And so I never had issues with guys providing. Nobody provided at the level my husband did, but I never had issues with guys paying for dates, none of that kind of stuff. And neither did my friends. And I know people can be like, oh, it's about your beauty, it's about this. It really wasn't that as much as it was the culture of the women was that why would I go out with you if you're not paying? Like it was literally the culture. It was understood that men were supposed to provide even if they couldn't. No man would have gotten to the point that was like, oh, well, let me sit back and see what she's going to do, because they understood that that was a part of who they were and their being in their safe, their sense of self as men. So it wasn't questioned in the way that it is today. So starting out with being a fully provided for wife, if you know that's what you want to be, the first thing the man has to provide for you, sis, is your basic needs. So that money that my husband was making every week in college, and he was 20 and understood this, that was about providing for my basic needs. He was like, I don't want you to have to ask anyone for anything. Lo and behold, my husband is actually really calculating and he thinks very long term. So he was actually thinking about something that he wanted to say to my mom when he asked for my hand in marriage, because my dad wasn't in my life. So when he asked for my mom's hand in marriage, my mom was actually, I was 19, so my mom was like, what in the world? Landasha's going to law school, we worked so hard to get her here, da 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 da. When my husband asked, right, she kind of had this whole single mom vibrato to him. And my husband so patiently, so calmly and quietly looked at my mom in her eye and said, since Landasha has been with me, has she had to call you for anything? And I looked at him and my mom looked at him. We were at my dining room table at home back in South Carolina at the time. And she was like, no. Like, she was quiet. She said, no. He said, exactly. He was like, I want to marry your daughter. And so I didn't he had this whole, I think it was all calculated. I gotta make sure and confirm that with him that it wasn't like a spur of the moment, no more, yes, that it wasn't like a spur of the moment thing. But it literally quieted my mom, because my mom was like, I had never had a guy, including in her dating history, 4 kids, single parent, all of that. She had never had a man step in the way that my husband had stepped to her and say, has she had to call you for anything since she's been with me? I want to marry your daughter. So he was showing the very first requirement of being a fully provided for wife is that your husband had a desire to provide for you, right? And provide for your basic needs. Now, I won't, of course, there's a ton of content coming around this. The questions that you guys will have will gauge the content and what you want to know. But one of the things now, as we fast forward, my husband is still, before I get into the boss babe part, literally to this day, my husband is not only the full provider for my basic everyday needs, he is the full provider for all of my luxurious and feminine needs as well. So he literally is like, when it comes to like the hunting and going out and figuring out money and all that kind of stuff, all of that, he is on a whole nother level. Like, seriously, I always tell him, like, you remind me of Warren Buffett, because I do a lot of reading. I'm a lawyer, you guys know that. Warren Buffett is one of my favorite individuals to study. And I've read a lot about his mindset growing up, how he was, some of the plays that he made with money. And my husband does the same thing naturally, and he ain't read none of these books. And I was like, oh my God, you think just like Warren. Like, oh my God, that's literally, like, he'll say certain things, and I'm just like, oh, you cut from the same cloth as Warren, right? I didn't know I was marrying a guy who had a natural inclination towards value investing, which is what Warren is known for. That's the money side of things. But he naturally moves in terms of value and deals. That's just what his mindset is. So let me take a break. You guys have any questions or anything like that? Take a sip of water. I need to really take a sip of this coffee. I've had it here for a little second. Let me see if it's cold. Mm, no, it's still warm. It's still warm. Yes. He was putting his money where his mouth is since day one. Absolutely. Absolutely. He was. He was putting his money where his mouth is since month one, day one. Close enough, honey. 31 days, one day, same thing. We've been together 17 years, over 17 years total, and married. It'll be 15 years in June. So yes, 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 yes. So fast forward, and that's how the evolution has happened. So today, my husband, literally, I have never had to come out of my pocket or like my money for really anything, right? Like, I do what I want to do with what I earn as a boss babe, and it's always kind of been like that. My husband has provided for us to travel around the world. We traveled all around the world. We're building our dream home. What else? All of my any luxury, I'm at the spa all of the time. Great insight for women, yes, who are looking to get married. Yes, rotational dating team. I am all for rotational dating. I love the fact that we have language for it now. We did not back in the day. The way that I dated, which again, my body was not involved in that. Like giving my body to men was not involved in that. But many women today, I think, would be looked, they're afraid of being looked at as a loose woman. Let me say it like that so I don't get flagged. They're afraid of being looked at as a loose woman. A loose woman is the woman who is giving her body and doing certain types of favors with her body that start with an S. That is a loose woman, right? Rotational dating is getting to know multiple people in healthy environments and healthy settings that are extremely fun, right? So when it comes to dating, my husband and I literally still date. It's required. That's one of my love languages. You got to take me out on dates. I love gifts. I like to be treated well and all of that. So we still go on very, very fun dates at a minimum twice a month. At a minimum, we have a daughter now. We're still doing that. Did your husband grow up with that example at home, being a provider? So great question. Yes, he did. So meaning my husband is a fifth generation husband. And when I say fifth generation husband, I don't mean that all of his father, grandfather, great grandfather, and great great grandfather were married to the same woman the whole time. So there are some divorces in this, but every last one of his direct lineage was at some point a husband. And so my husband, whose dad has been married twice to his mom and then now his current wife, he grew up watching his dad provide. Yes, so he did have that in his past. And so for me, in terms of being a wife, my mom is a wife now to a provider husband. I love my stepfather. Actually, I didn't have that growing up, but she is married to her stepdad, my stepdad now, and he's a provider man. And she was also briefly married to my little sister's father, who was a great guy, but there just wasn't alignment. She was not a wife when I was born. She was not a wife until after my sister with my sister's dad. So technically, I'm a fourth generation wife. And I only say that just simply because I don't. Some people may count the divorces or not. Marriages don't last like 60 years like they did the last time. But he did grow up seeing an example of a provider. Yes, and I do think that that is important. I don't think it's what's the word? Provision in men is actually intuitive. So meaning like the guys that I dated before my husband, they all had fathers. One of them, their dad was in the home. One of them, their dad and mom were divorced. But my little brother, who didn't grow up with his dad in the home, of course, because of the situation that my mom had us in. I have a little brother now. He doesn't let women pay for anything, and he never has. Like he grew up being a young guy who was just he always provided. So whatever I needed was like, sis, don't do this, sis, don't do that, sis, no. Men, even boys naturally have this part to them that's about giving. And I think it is rooted back into the biology of men and the fact that in past cultures and in past times, men literally had to go hunt because women were sitting with the children. And so that's still inside of who they are, right? Naturally. I do think we're going through a shift, unfortunately, in our consciousness, especially in America, because, and I don't, hate this. Boss Babe Lindasha loves this part of America, which is the ability of a woman to go out and earn her own money, right? I run my own law firm. I just made money yesterday. I had a call today for another, I think it was a $10,000 offer. So I love the fact that I can choose to do that. But because in our past, we couldn't choose it as women, this is a more modern, evolution for us. Feminism is what brought that on, right? Um, Men naturally know how to provide. And if you notice, they will go provide for the woman that they want. Right. So I don't know, you guys tell me if you've had this story or if you've heard this story whereby a man will be dating a woman and stringing her along for years, maybe even a decade or more, and then go off and marry a woman he met within 6 months because there's a provider in him. That woman activated the provider in him because of how she moved in her femininity, which for me, one of the biggest things that I do is I use my more omega energy in my home. Yes, right. I agree. And like Mina teaches us as women are able to bring exactly. We are able to bring that out. I use my omega, I call it omega energy because omega just means the last, meaning it's the lean back energy. It's also a religious word. Y'all know I grew up in South Carolina in the church. So some of my ladies who will be following after the replay, they will identify with that alpha omega. I don't know if you didn't come from the Christian background, it may be like, girl, what are you talking about? But the omega energy is the lean back energy. It is the more peaceful, restful, like I'm waiting to see how things play out. It is definitely the heart of a feminine energy. It's like we're not coming out, to showcase our energy outward. Our energy is very together, is very possessed inside of us, and we're waiting to see what of these options actually plays out into what we want. And the omega energy is very selective. The feminine energy is very, very selective. As I told you guys, that's why rotational dating to me is extremely important. If you are looking to become a fully provided for wife, is because you got to select, you got to have a selection of men in order to decide which one of them are standing out. And you also don't waste your time in your younger years with the guy who you think is going to do the right thing and he ends up not doing the right thing. And, he's just a guy who's not ready for that. Right. So I try to be mindful of the words that I use about men because in my culture, I'm an African American woman. There's a lot of wounds between men and women in my culture. And so I try to be very mindful to speak about men in a more neutral light. So, because if we go too far sometimes, wow, for the first time I hear from these concepts. Yes, yes. Hi. Well, I'm glad you're here, Feminine Readings. Stay. I love it. Yes, thank you. Welcome. Um, but in my culture, there are, like I said, all of these wounds between men and women, and they go back generationally, like hundreds of years, right? And so, because I have seen all that foolishness play out, I try to be mindful of how I speak about men. And so, for instance, one of the guys that was my front runner in my past, who I did not select, well, who I did not choose to remain in a relationship with because he wasn't ready, right? The way that a lot of women would talk about a man like that is they start calling him a dog. They say all of these things, even though he definitely did. Um, when I went off to college, he began seeing another woman, and I heard it through the grapevine that he's seeing somebody else, right? I don't know if you guys know the song. It's an older black African American song. It's like, I heard it through the grapevine. Not much longer would you be mine. That's how it ended with that guy, right? And so he was talking to another girl, and that is a very devastating experience for a young person, a young woman. I remember feeling those feelings and being like shocked, like, whoa. He said, oh, I want to be your wife. Now, I didn't necessarily trust it. I was always kind of like side eyeing and saying, we'll see about the wife part. But I do think that there was a part of him that was like, she is a wife. I would want that. But he just was not ready, right? So the language that you create around your past dating experiences either set you up to be a healed version of yourself to go in your future and actually be available for a husband, or it can cripple you and have you stuck with a person who unfortunately was just not ready to be your husband. He would, even if it, like all of my exes that I dated and many of the guys in my dating rotation literally are all either married now or are divorced, unfortunately, but they stepped up at some point in their lives to be husbands. And the relationship just didn't work out. So, it's also a season time. My husband was ready in this season. He had dated around. He's very handsome. He had talked to plenty of girls and way more than that because guys are not as sometimes considerate of that part of them the way we as women are naturally a little bit more selective with our bodies. Men move differently, but he had experienced the world in a way. So he was ready. He was like, that's about nothing. I want a wife. And so he was ready for what it took. So yeah, so how do you become that fully provided for wife? One of the things we talked about and I said in here is about upgrading your energy. And that upgrade of energy into my omega energy is the primary energy that I use in my home as a fully provided for wife. Why do I use my omega energy over my alpha energy? So my alpha energy is what I primarily use in my boss babe life. I'm actually using a bit of my alpha energy right now because I have a whole business around a whole digital business and online business around building women up and evolving them in their personal growth journeys so that you can achieve the things that you want in life, right? And so with my happy wife life cohort and one-on-one offerings, this is where we sit down and we deal with how to create your own plan for using your energy in the proper parameters, right? So in my home, I use my omega energy, my lean back energy, my nurture energy, my wait and see energy, right? My husband, he takes on the alpha energy in our home because he is a masculine male, right? Masculine men are not attracted in their sexual essence to masculine anything, men or women, right? That's not attractive to them. They're attracted to the feminine energy, right? Which in my household, he's attracted to women biologically and energetically, right? My husband is very big on when I let's say I have some of my alpha energy lingering, like I had a hard day in court or something. I'm not in court a lot anymore, but when I was in court at the early part of my career, sometimes I would have lingering alpha energy. Time I got home, my husband would be like, "Are you okay? Do you need me to do anything? Did somebody hurt you?" It was like, "Why are you so on edge? Why are you so forward in your energy?" And it was his presence that honestly kind of had me start to even learn more about these energies. I didn't have a name for this stuff, but learn more about how to move because I was like, yeah, why am I on edge? I'm safe here. Everything's provided for, everything's cared for, right? And my husband was the check to that. Like, who do I need to go get, right? I remember I had a fight in my boss babe life. I had a really tough judge that I was dealing with in one season of my legal career. And for whatever reason, this judge's personality and my personality just did not mesh. Right? We really had different fundamental views of how to how justice was supposed to be served, and I was in his courtroom a lot. So I would be frustrated often trying to advocate for my clients, and I felt like the judge was always not holding up his end of the bargain, which was to make decisions according to the law. This is legal, right? So either way, it brought out a lot of frustrations. And that season taught me a lot about making sure I left my alpha energy at the courthouse or in business. And so we'll get into that more in the future. If you have any other questions, let me know. Also, just put them in the chat and I can answer them according to how you want. But one of the things that I'm super excited about in this season of my life, because I've gotten my boss babe life in its proper place and I have like the proper parameters around that, I'm excited to be able to offer some of the coaching opportunities that I can offer to women now. And part of that is because I have consistently up leveled even in my boss babe alpha energy because my husband does all of the full providing and my luxurious, feminine needs. I'm able to show up a bit more in this space and do what I consider to be really, really holy work. It is divine work to be able to sit. If you think about the work that Mina does, the work that Sienna, I don't know if you guys know about Sienna. Sienna Skills is another amazing rotational dating coach. The work that I'm now coming into the space and doing, the ability to stand as lights in these spaces and have these amazing stories and show you what God is able to do in our lives, like that's a very special work to me. And I've had to do a lot of healing, and we'll talk about that also over time. And I've already talked about some of it in my past videos, but I've had to do a good amount of healing in order to secure this version of myself. Yes, yes, you are all providing divine services. Yes, thank you, thank you. And so I've had to do a ton of healing in what were my mother's wounds around. She had to use her alpha energy because she did not have men that stayed and provided for us, our families, in that space. Part of it though was because she was in her alpha energy so much. My mom didn't really know how to, at the season of that, taking care of kids, lean back and trust men. So some of you may be there where it's like, girl, I've had a lot of disappointment surrounding the male species. But, so yes, I use my alpha energy, but the truth of the matter is that can absolutely cost you a provider husband, when you don't know how to put proper containers around that. And so, one of the things that I wanted to invite you guys into, just in general, as we're moving forward, is my Happy Wife Life one-on-one. It's not a cohort, it's definitely a one-on-one skill set building day. It's going to be an intensive, whereby you and I sit from about 9:30 in the morning to 5 o'clock in the evening. It's like a 6 to 8 hour day, and we are only going to deal with your plan to merge both your boss babe and your fully provided for wife. Those two versions of yourself will sit, and we will do what is necessary to uplevel your self-care routines, to take your energy away from the people who are like consistently grabbing at you, right? So one of the things that you do when you are a very um, harmonious woman with your energies, when you can move seamlessly through your energies, what ends up happening is you remove your energy from things that are not beneficial to the goals that you set. And so, in our one on one, we're going to create what I like to call the Tahitian Ocean Clarity Plan. And why do I say that? So, for my 30th birthday, my husband took me to Bora Bora in Tahiti. And in Tahiti, we went to a beach. I call it the Glass Beach. I cannot remember the name of it to save my life. I have to look it up. But he took me. Tahiti is known for all of these amazing beaches, and we went to all of them. You can drive the whole island. Tahiti is drivable. We went to all of the amazing beaches everybody said go to, but the one that stood out to me was the what I call the Glass Beach. It is the most like clear, glassy water I have ever seen in my life. I have some pictures. I'll have to share them on YouTube on a post for you guys. But literally, you could see a shark's fin if it were coming up. That's how clear the water is. And so, we're going to, in our one on one, develop a plan that is that clear. I'm going to share with you the questions that I asked myself. We're going to get that plan together so that by the end of this year, you can have your proper containers set, and now your energy is being used in proper ways so that you can actually be available to attract the high provider male if that's what you want. Or I've had a few women who you actually have your high provider husband, but you let your boss babe energy go, right? Maybe you focused on kids or you focused on your home, but you feel a certain lack, right? So my boss babe energy, I love her because I was in school from the age of 3 to 25, becoming a lawyer. That's a long time, right? I passed the bar the first time, and then I've been practicing law for 10 years, but I literally could not give up on being a lawyer just because I had a husband that provided. That was my story. I'm not talking about some women. I have women who I know, they like, girl, I threw that government job that I had by, and now I'm with my kids and my man, and they're super happy. And so that's good if that's what you want. But for me, because I had ascended to a career that's very, very, it required a lot. I just couldn't. I could not see myself not using the law in any capacity. So I had to create a business model for my practice that allowed me to be this beautiful feminine woman in my other life, because my husband, honestly, he just wasn't having it any other way. In the sense of his energy, not like oh, I'm demanding that you do this, but I just saw that, oh, he's not attracted to an alpha. Like, he's like, what are you doing? You're a woman and you're pretty. Like, that men just don't interact with you in that same way. He didn't want to be friction. He didn't want to have all that friction with me. He's like, that's not what you're for. My husband will say that often. He's like, you're not for fighting. He's like, look at you. You're not for fighting. You're for comfort. You're my wife. You're whatever. And he had a great way of explaining it that I think also aided in me um, really getting to the point where I could put the proper boundaries around these two different energies and use my alpha energy to make money and serve women and to have more desires, right? Whatever I wanted to do, if I want a new bag, even though my husband supplies all of that, but investments, a lot of my money now is going towards investments. So we're looking at doing another real estate purchase, several of them this year. So a good amount of my money will maybe secure the earnest money or whatever else for a property that I want, or that kind of stuff. You just do whatever you want to do with your money. So if you're interested in that, just I will put the link. I don't know if I have it. Let me see if I have it kind of quick. I may have it. I think this is the link for the payment page there. All you'll do is you'll just email me 3 different dates at lindasha@gmail.com. Once you pay, you'll shoot me 3 different emails. Either myself or someone else on my team will absolutely get back to you on those 3 dates. I try to keep my hands in emails. I have the law firm and then I have this one. And so I try to keep my hands in the emails as much as possible to respond to you directly myself too, because I like to be the front face of the business. And so that's how easy it would be for you to sign up. You can come to Atlanta actually. And if you want to fly into Atlanta and we do it live, or we can do it through Zoom. So it's completely up to you guys. And at the end of the day, one of the things that I want is I just want to make sure that you get what you want out of life, because I'm in the stage where God is just kind of birthing desires all the time. Right. I'm very confident that I can have what I want out of life. And I want that same thing for women. I think the world is better when we have that. And so I'm going to close out with just 4 tips. If you made it all the way to the end, I know some of you may have to leave and different things like that, but if you made it to the end, watching the replay, put I made it to the end there. But we are going to close out today with talking about pretty much what we'll come back next week and discuss. I want to have a weekly lunch date with you ladies so that we can get this part of our lives together and move on and enjoy our life before we die, because that's the only thing that's guaranteed. So at our next lunch date, we're going to talk about the top 4 things the ultimate high value woman does, right? The top 4 things that she lives by and that she does. Number 1 is she is very, very serious about her internal boundaries. So that means like her thoughts and her feelings. So the way that kind of looks in my life is if I'm in my self-care time, I'm not working on my clients' problems, right? I'm not in my head putting together a new sales package for you ladies to work with me, right? So she's very, very serious about her internal boundaries. That's going to be fun to talk about, okay? Number 2 is the ultimate high value woman prefers self-care over self-sabotage. In areas where I see myself self-sabotaging, like I will self-sabotage in a diet very quickly, just FYI. But the truth of the matter is I prefer self-care over self-sabotage. So I pull that area of my life up as fast as I can. And we'll get into that story more. Number 3, she's not emotionally triggered by providers. So there are a lot of women, because you've been out in this dating world and it's a lot of predators, you can't tell the difference between a predator or a provider in your discernment. So providers actually trigger you. You feel intimidated by them, how they approach you, the questions that they ask. We're going to talk about that. And then number 4, the ultimate high value woman is energetically aligned. We dealt with it a little bit today. We put our human power towards what we decided that we wanted, right? And we remove our energy from things that are not aligned with us. So that will be our lunch date next week. I want it to be next Friday at the same time, but be on the lookout on my YouTube channel, because I will make sure to put a post if that anything like that changes with my calendar. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for showing up. You are more than welcome, Feminine Readings. And thank you for staying to the end. And I just share it if you guys loved it. If there was anything that helped you, let people know. And I will see you guys on next week is the goal. But either way, I'll make sure to put it as a post in YouTube and also on my Instagram, so that you'll know when we're meeting. Okay. Bye, y'all.